Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Marie and myself, Coach David Syvertson. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. Dave and Sam are back together. It's been a while since we've been able to record together. It's the first time we're doing it satellite like this without a guest via StreamYard. It's been going decent the past couple weeks. Still working out a few kinks here and there, but the main idea of the podcast, the content, the conversations that we're having, they've been going really well. With Bobby a couple weeks ago, Kelly and Kayla from Power Nutrition last week. Kelly, we're thinking about you as you recover from surgery. And Sam, what's up, my man? How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you. I saw you this morning. You were killing it at the gym this morning too.
Yeah, good training session before go to see Pastor Mike and preach at church this morning. It's good Sunday. Now we get to cap it off talking about CrossFit and the CrossFit Open. Now, Sam, have you seen I guess you call it the press release from CrossFit talking about what's going to be coming up in the upcoming season for 2026?
Yes, reviewed it, took a look at and kind of looked at some of the changes this year versus previous years and kind of try to put that in context with what's been going on with the turbulent times, I would say, that CrossFit has been having lately.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to make this podcast about training for the Open and trying to make quarterfinals. We know we'll get there, and I don't think either one of us really want to even dive into that part of this conversation. This is more of a big picture, macro level, what is coming our way in the season, and then maybe even dive into do we not like all these changes yet again. The one consistent thing about CrossFit sport and CrossFit Games is that it's not consistent. And I want to kind of touch on that. And I do hear any feedback? Does this sound good on your end?
Sounds good to me.
All right, good. So I'm good. So we're going to try some screen share stuff, nothing fancy here. But for those that are going to watch on YouTube, you can kind of play around. This is kind of like how our outline is going to work as well with what we're going to be talking about. And the CrossFit season, just to keep this chronologically in order, obviously starts off with the CrossFit Open, all right? And you have 26.1, 26.2, 26.3, basically end of February into March. And there's nothing different about that. They have a new sponsor this year, sponsored by the Air National Guard, which is a pretty cool sponsor. I do think CrossFit and its military ties, they have not tied that together via sponsorship as well as they should have over the past decade. And it's really cool to see that sponsor up. So Sam, this is the most basic element of the season. It's the start of the season. It looks like the one consistent thing about the season is that the Open will remain 3 weeks. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the right thing. I agree with that. It's starting at the end of February like it usually does. It's 3 weeks, changed some years ago from 5. And I think most people are in agreement that that's probably the way to go with it.
If you remember back to the fall of 2019, we were doing an Open basically 2 weeks from now. And I still remember they did experiment. For those that are somewhat new to CrossFit, they experimented with moving the CrossFit Open to the fall. For whatever reason, I never really got a real reason behind that. I think it was because they wanted to extend the length of the season and make it a little bit easier to not feel like you're jamming things in back to back to back. And it was probably what the least attended or least registered Open in history. No brainer, right, Sam, that programming the Open for this time of year is the best way to go in February and March.
Absolutely. I think we're sort of set up as a gym for that as athletes. You know, you get through the holiday season, you kind of, keep that in the back of your mind. And then come January, February, you start, getting all your wheels ready to hit the ground running at the end of February for it.
And it's funny that we now know this at this time period because I think CrossFit has done a good job of like laying out the schedule now. And I think that's a really important thing for the affiliate owners, some athletes, not all, just that we know here in September what we're doing next year. In the past, sometimes we would not find out till December or January, what the season outline is going to be, but B, also the dates. So I respect and applaud them for really being out in front for these past couple of years, because it does help us as affiliate owners and coaches to give us these dates, let us know what's coming, when it's coming. And the last piece of news in regard to the Open, this is kind of cool. At Wadapalooza in March, right? It got bumped back to March. They're going to announce 24.3 at Wadapalooza, and that's going to be an event that they do on the spot as part of the competition weekend, which is a really cool thing. Did you see
Yeah.
that today?
Yeah, I saw that, and I think 26.3. They're trying to tie in, do some cross branding, take advantage of Wadapalooza, which is an extremely popular event, and I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, and it's ironic to see Dave Castro. I hate to say partner with them because CrossFit. It's not that they were never not associated with each other, but Dave Castro has been on record saying in the past that he would never even go to Wadapalooza, not necessarily out of lack of support, but he just, when he's not in charge of it, he's not running it, he can't go in and just have a good time. So he wants to remove himself from that competition. But that has become a beast. I competed there now 10 years ago, and it was big and impressive back then. And I feel like every year they up the ante, where it's just a much more games caliber competition. And I love the fact that they come together and do it this way. So that's the Open, guys. You'll hear more about the Open from us obviously in the coming months, like we always do. But what most people in our gym are most interested about in regard to the sport side of CrossFit are the quarterfinals. If you remember last year, okay, they did not have quarterfinals. It went right to semifinals. And that was top 1% for the Open division. It was the top 2% for the age group divisions. And that was a pretty big deal at our gym. And I'll get into why I think there's good and bad behind this big pool of athletes that are going to advance to the next stage and why it was good last year with the smaller group. But they are going back to the top 25% of the athletes from the CrossFit Open will advance to quarterfinals. And quarterfinals will be online March 26th to March 30th, which is a Thursday to Monday. Keep that in mind. In the past, they used to cut them off on Sundays. This goes into the next week. When quarterfinals began as a thing, it was a really fun time at Bison. I remember it drummed up a lot of interest in the sport. It was a 10% number. And that seemed to be the line that it's obtainable, but it's really hard to get to that spot. You have to dedicate a lot of time, effort, energy to get there. So they extended it to make it a little bit more inclusive to 25%. And then last year, like I said, there was zero. There were quarterfinals did not exist. So I do think that is where the biggest change going back to the 25%. I want to get your thoughts first on, you've been a part of the 10%. You're one of the OG age group qualifiers. So you've been in that, like, dare do I say, exclusive group, very few people advance. And then you saw the gym go through the 25%, which had a lot of positives. It opened the door to the next stage of competition for a lot of people. And that was a blast to be a part of. What's your initial thought when you hear from a coach and owner perspective that 25% will now advance to the quarterfinal stage?
The cynical part of me says,
yeah,
cash grab. But then, but then the sort of the athlete side of me says, and the affiliate side of me says, net benefit. So we've talked about this before, and this is my 2024 quarterfinal shirt that from 2 years ago. I did make it. Making that top the semis last year was incredibly difficult. Only a very few people at our gym made it. I think you made it last year, right?
Yep.
It was tight, and I missed it by about, I think in my age group it was like top 200. I was, maybe top 250 or 300 or something like that. It was really tight and
really tight.
Yeah. And so to allow a larger group of people to play, we've talked about the pros and cons. I think the cons as an affiliate owner is the logistics. It was nuts in 2024. You remember, like, trying to arrange all this. But the upside was, as you mentioned, so many people got to play on the next level. People really enjoyed those workouts. It was a badge of honor. It was truly a badge of honor for these athletes. They felt like it was very meaningful for them, and it is a very meaningful event to make that top 25 regardless. So we can debate the reasons why they did this.
Yeah.
But I think, me personally, I think I'm glad they brought that back from 2024.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings. I like the top 10% because it feels more sporty. But the top 25% feels more community. And at the older I get, the more I do this, I feel like that is much more important to open the door to more people. And it doesn't take away, in my opinion, not everyone agrees with this, but it does not take away from the exclusive high performing athletes going to do their thing, because when you get to the quarterfinals, you're now looking at a completely different genre of workouts with weights and skills and volume and recoverability in a 3 to 4 day span, where, hey, if you love that exclusive feeling, you're going to get it that weekend. And you don't need to pay too much attention to anything else beyond that. Like, if you really are dialed in to your goals and you hitting a certain threshold or a certain percentage or advancing to a semifinal, you should just stay in that lane and just stay focused on that. Because I remember, I think our number off the top of my head, I think it was 60. I think we had 60 athletes qualify for the next stage. Even in those 60 people, you had some that just didn't feel like doing it. I mean, I think at least 10. So, you're not going to have as many competitors doing it. It is a schedule nightmare for a lot of people that have jobs and kids. You have a lot to do in a very short amount of time in a very specific window, a specific weekend. And the other side of it is, do I want to spend another $50 for maybe seeing a couple workouts I can't even do? So the volume of athletes is not as high as you might initially think. But like you said, the feel that people get from advancing to open to another stage is really important, in my opinion, for retention. And I'm talking from a business perspective, that I think we all have a hard time always trying to find something to shoot for. This is why High Rocks is doing really well. Very low barrier of entry. You can sign up for it, train for it, keeps you motivated. And at the end of the day, that's a big reason why retention wavers between gyms. Where's the motivation? What's causing you to come back? So now that it's a 25% number, we have athletes in our gym that had, to be blunt, no shot at making a top 2%, top 1%, right? But now the door's open to dozens of people that do have a shot, but they have to put the work in. They have to clean their lifestyle up. They have to make working out a priority. They have to work on certain skills. And the last thing I'll say is, I think this challenges the coaches as well in CrossFit. Now that you have a whole new group of people that are going to have certain goals, and it's going to challenge you to help them out. You're going to have to get these people their first pull-ups and their first chest bars. Because remember, we had an athlete make quarterfinals a couple of years ago when it was 25%, who scaled one of the workouts. Like, it is possible to reach this level for a lot of people. And I want everyone to kind of be inspired by that, but want something to shoot for. Now, you're interesting to me in this discussion, Sam, you as an athlete. All right. Takeaway coach, takeaway owner, you as an athlete. Like I said earlier, you're one of the OG Masters qualifiers, you and Kathleen Staun. That's something like, when we build statues of you guys, that'll be out in front. All right. But, and you've made quarterfinals a few times, top 10%, top 25%. And I don't want to say you're not competitive anymore. You can say it if you want to, but there's still something that makes you work a little extra hard. Does this mean anything to someone like you, that you were there, you did all the extra programming, you did next level, you were fighting through pain. Now you're just fit. I want to be safe. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. Where does this kind of change up your plans, your view of it at all?
You're right. I'm not competitive anymore, but
Yeah.
You're right. It does, for a couple of reasons. I can think of at least another 5 or maybe 7 athletes who ended up having to try to redo some of the open workouts last year to see if they could make the cut line for semis. It was close for a couple. A couple people, and
a lot.
Yeah, and that made it frustrating, because the open, as you know, those workouts are all different skill sets. They're mostly grindy. There's low skill, and so all of those cater to a particular athlete. You don't get to play with all the nice toys and high skill levels that you
Right.
get to at the next level. So it's always been a little frustrating that way. I could have redone. I knew if I really wanted to make myself safe last year, I should have redone at least one of those workouts last year, and I chose not to for
Right.
a variety of reasons.
Okay.
Mostly because I'm lazy and I'm not competitive, but
Yeah.
but but now I know I probably could hit top 25.
Yeah.
And now I might think about this year, okay, what kind of skill sets could I work on a little bit for the quarterfinal events? Because those are fun events. Like the grindy events are the open events usually, but the fun events are the quarterfinal events. And so that's going to, if I anticipate, if everything goes well, if I could make it through to the 25%, all right, so what is it that's going to make these events fun for me? I think for a lot of athletes, it gets them not to have to worry so much about, do I have to crush every open event like out of the park?
Mhm.
And I can now also train for a more diverse skill set because as a coach, when you train for open events, it's a little different than training someone to get through the quarterfinal events.
Very much. Yeah. There's a couple different tiers of athletes, but you have, training, like training someone exclusively for the open, whether it's top 10%, top 1%, 2%, 25, like, hey, the open, like there's a very specific thing that we need to pursue, right? Volume capacity, reps per minute, conditioning, right? Maybe a lift here and there, post workout. But then you have the athletes like last year, for example, you bring up a good point that this makes the open a lot less stressful for some people, where last year, for the first time, I think ever in a lot of people's heads, they were stressed out about the open because the top 1-2% is a really small number. And yeah, people are repeating workouts that would never repeat an open workout. And then you have the people that I think is the majority of CrossFit and Bison. It's like, hey, it'd be cool to make it, sure, but I don't want to have to change this, and this just to qualify for a weekend that puts me through a blender of workouts that I have to spend $50 for and I have to get babysitters for. Those are basically the three tiers. It's like, all right, train for the open, train for the quarterfinals, and hey, it'd be cool if I made it, but I don't want to. So that's going to be a challenge for us. But now that we know ahead of time, like we can put all of our coaches' heads together and really like, hey, what can we change about? I heard a couple coaches this morning talking about the gymnastics seminar that we just had on Friday. Like, what can we do to implement some of this stuff into our programming? And then we'll probably have a more structured talk to do that. But that is, I think all of that is under the same umbrella that we do need something that stimulates us, that gets us motivated. I feel like if there's no such thing as the open, or there's no such thing as a quarterfinal goal, semifinal goal for some, CrossFit Games goal now for some, it's like a slow death. It's like a really slow decline. It's not a sharp, like, hey, I'm out. Every now and then you see that, but it's really when you don't have something that kind of motivates you and makes you happy, makes you upset, makes you desire for something. I believe that's where I think the candle starts to like the flame really starts to dwindle down a little bit.
Agree.
Do you think that is why? Do you think this is a big picture strategy of CrossFit to constantly change the season because it re-stimulates a new group of people every single time they make the change? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's part of the thinking, or do you think they're just that unorganized and indecisive?
I think they're that unorganized. I think honestly, last year they tried to streamline stuff. Right, they cut down the number of stages, so there was no quarterfinals. They reduced the semis into mostly online, a few
Yep.
in person for the elite athletes, and they cut down the number of events for the games. They cut down the number of days for the games. Like they were in minimize mode last year, and they
Wow.
realized
Damage
based
control.
on based on everything that they got, the feedback they got from last year's season, this is not the way to go. And
Okay.
so I feel like they're kind of struggling to find the right formula, and there's no, and they're looking at others. They're looking at the High Rocks events. They're looking at the number of registrations for them, and we can look at the numbers. Like it's crazy bad where CrossFit is going with this. They have they haven't they're we've been talking about a buyer for them for a while now. And so I think what these guys are doing with the CrossFit Games season and for the sport is saying, let's stabilize this. How many more people can we bring in? Quarterfinals looked a lot better based on the data. Let's bring in some more on in-person events, which I'm sure you'll talk about. And I think they're trying to, steal from High Rocks and some other places and see what they can do with this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, adding it back to 25% is a High Rocks type move because you're just opening the door to more people. You're lowering the barrier of entry. You're making it less intimidating. And I will say this, when they announced, and we'll move on to semifinals after this, when they announced top 1%, 2% last year, my first thought was, oh, this is going to crush people because it's not obtainable for a lot of people, even like the 10% range, right? And when you start taking opportunities away from people or toggling, even right now, toggling back and forth, it can make people just not want to do it anymore. They just don't sign up. Like I think CrossFit will live on, the methodology, the gyms, the classes, the communities. It'll live on if the CrossFit Games announce tomorrow that we're done. We're out. We're folding it. We're going to hand it off to Rogue or Wadapalooza or WFP. But that would, in our gym specifically, I think it would make, eventually, it'd be a slow death. It would make a lot of people question whether or not they want to do it anymore. And we can have a bigger discussion at some point saying, is that what CrossFit should be leaning into sport? As we watch Outlast grow and thrive and we see CrossFit kind of like just staying put, is leaning into the sport a bad idea? I don't know. But I do think when you take opportunities away or you're raising the barrier of entry, top 1%, top 2%, even 10%, it just gives a bigger group of people to eventually say, hey, there's no point in me doing this. There's no point in me showing up to open gym to work on my squat. There's no point in working on ring muscle up skill. Whereas right now I have people showing up to open gym to work on ring muscle ups just in case they show up in an open workout 5 months from now. Well, there's bigger benefits to just hitting a muscle up in an open workout, right? But it's that voice in the head that got them to the gym. And that's why I'll sing this till I'm done. I'll die on this hill that I think the open is very important to CrossFit, but how it's delivered and what is beyond the open is a big deal. And I do think this is probably the best way to help gain some retention for gyms.
I agree with you.
On to semifinals, a few changes here. All right. So there's going to be semifinals in person. They do not have specific dates, locations yet, but that's April to June. Okay. The semifinals for online, this is the open division. All right. I know a lot of our listeners are more masters biased, but the open semifinals will be June 11th to June 15th. It does say on the games website, this will be after the final in-person semifinal. So if you make semis, all right, you get invited, you don't make the games, you still want to get another shot at it. This is like what would be replacing a last chance qualifier, which is what the CrossFit has done a lot in the past. If you're an athlete that you don't have a shot at making the games, but you make semis, I think it is the top 2,000 athletes. So that's a lot of people in there that have no shot at making the games, but they did qualify. We have a couple in our gym, I'm sure, that are striving after that. They get to compete in the affiliate June 11th to 15th. Again, that's going to be a Thursday through Friday, and that'll be after all the in-person semifinals. Age group, all right? Again, like I said earlier, most of our athletes that are interested in this are masters, okay? May 7th to 11th will be the online semifinal. So if you qualify for this, you basically have about 5 weeks to kind of train for it, recover from quarterfinals, and then train for it again. I want to talk about a potential issue with that. But I think the coolest thing that I saw on the games website from this statement was this year they're going to open up live qualifying spots at certain select semifinals for masters athletes. So the Syndicate Crown in Tennessee, where Patrick Vellner and Jason Hopper and Dallin Pepper are competing for their game spot, there's also going to be Masters divisions at those. How many? What age groups? How do you get there? I don't know. I don't think they know yet. They have not released any of that information, but that is a really cool component to the semifinals. That's something I've always, as a Masters athlete, wanted a shot at competing in person. I don't like the online stuff. You do it because you have to, but I think that's a really cool element. What do you think about that, Sam?
I love it. I love the fact that they're going to actually have in-person competition for semis for age group. For the individuals, top 2,000 men and women advance to get to the semis, which is expected. For the age group, it's going to estimate maybe top 300 to 400 per division will be advancing. That's for some of, I mean, I probably know you and a bunch of others that are going to be making semis. Reasonable shot, very reasonable shot. How awesome is it going to be for a whole crew of people from the gym to travel to whatever the semifinal event's going to be, you know, and cheer, not just for one person, but maybe 3 people or 4 people or whomever make it. Like, how effing cool is that going to be? I cannot wait for that to happen. This online, I mean, we get excited as a gym when someone does their online competition stuff in the gym, and we're all cheering. I remember cheering for you in the online semis in the past, and but boy, how awesome is that going to be? And it's going to raise hopefully revenue for that event, because they're going to be, you know, just like you see at Legends or the age group games. Like, it's not just the athletes competing, it's all the people that come spend money at these events, who are participating, staying at these hotels, all of this stuff. So I think this is sort of an experiment to see, can we increase the amount of visibility, publicity, revenue, and these are not being paid for or run by CrossFit. It's going to be their partners. So they're letting, like you said, the Syndicate Crown take the risk, but maybe they might hit it out of the park and make some serious money off of this.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see. My first thought, those are good thoughts on just like bringing the community together. I do think this, right? Masters athletes that compete, I know this as a Masters athlete, it's not as fun to watch as Open athletes. We get it. But there's also a much more intimate feel when you're watching these athletes from the age groups. A, you relate to them more as a Masters athlete, but B, they're pretty much, I would even say all of them are from a gym. To me, the Open division now, most of them are not from a gym. They're from a training camp, or they work out in the corner of an affiliate by themselves and they get paid for this or they do that. Like, they're not the coaches. They're not opening up the gym in the morning like the old regional days, right? Part of the reason what made regionals so awesome from that 2012 to 2018 era were your coaches and the people you worked out with in class were there competing. You were like, you felt with them, a part of them, and vice versa. They would hear their people in the stands that they work out with and they coach, and it just makes them go harder. It adds to the environment. It adds to the community vibe. And that has left since all these training camps have popped up. Every now and then you see an athlete from a gym, and they usually have the biggest group of supporters that travel with the signs and the posters and all that. So you have to imagine that any Masters athlete that qualifies for an in-person semifinal in whatever age group, to be honest with you, that you're going to have a group, maybe dozens of people from that affiliate show up. And from a CrossFitter, from CrossFit HQ perspective, the more people that bleed CrossFit, the more of them you get together in one location, that's where the magic sauce is going to be. How do you do that? You can go a lot of different directions with how to do that, but that's what worked in that first like 8-year run of the regionals. I think that's part of their strategy. Now, logistically, that's what I'm not sure how this works schedule-wise, right? They're pretty jam-packed events, and I don't know if they have extra floor space or a back room for people to compete at. But the one problem with opening the door to Masters, and I want to know what you think about this, you're not just adding a few, right? Unless it's like 5 people per age group or 10 people. There's so many age groups. you have what, you have 12 age groups times two, because men and women, it's 24 groups of people coming to your gym. You're now going from watching 60 to 80 athletes compete at a semifinal to potentially 400. How does that go down? I mean, that's where I'm a little unsure about. How do you get to the semi? Do you have to rank a certain level in quarterfinals to qualify, or is it an invite? They just keep backfilling. Is it based on location? That's where I think we're a little unsure. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be the most popular. So let's suppose, like, I don't think anyone wants to see me as a 56-year-old out there competing in a live event. I think
Our gym would.
uh, I
Our
would
gym
say,
would.
which I appreciate, but I think it's going to be like the 35 to 39-year-olds, men and women. I think they're a shoo-in. Who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to see Sam Dancer, Bobby Wallum, Dave Syvertson competing in person? Like,
I'm 40 now.
oh, you're okay. You're in the fourth. So I feel like it's going to be it's going to skew young. It's going to skew to the more known athletes,
Okay.
and I feel like it's just going to be a select groupings of the age groups. That being said, that's still gonna. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. It's like I've gone back and forth in my head. Would I rather, as a fan, watch 20 athletes from 35 to 39 compete, and they get that kind of their own heats, right? They do the same workouts. They're capable, right? Or would I rather see, 5 to 10 of 35, 40, 45, 50, 55? But again, now you're only, I don't like watching competitions with 5 people in a division. Like, I want 20 people there.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they would even bump up the days. Like, would you do Masters early in the week? Can you even do that? Would people want to come watch that? When you watch semifinals on a broadcast, there's not many people there on a Friday because of work, right? If you start putting a comp on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, nobody will be there, especially if it's Masters. So I don't think that works. Those are big level decisions, like from people that I do trust. Those guys that run those semifinal events, they're very smart logistically. Maybe they have some extra space. Like, if you could basically double the workout space, not on the same floor, like have a different floor and do all non-gymnastics, non-rope climb workouts over there for both divisions, I think it could work out to have another probably 200 athletes there. But I am curious to see how that goes down. And because I know masters groups, how plugged I am into the masters sport and listening to these briefings, the older age groups, they get offended very easily if they feel like they're being pushed to the side, or even like, hey, we're not going to have bar muscle ups for you. We're going to have chest to bar. And you'll hear it every time, like, guys, we're capable of doing this. Like, and I do believe, from a story perspective, watching a 57-year-old do a muscle up is much more impressive than watching a 35-year-old do 10. But is that what people want to see on a live broadcast? Is that going to put people in the door? That's where I think it's a tough decision to make.
I would really, I know you know Joe and Bob pretty well, and it's complicated because this also affects how they program for the age group games as well, like logistics. So I really want to see how they integrate with these live open events and see what they do with that. I agree.
Yeah.
It's there's about 5 million questions that need to be answered here.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get them in the next month. Again, it's early. That's the advantage of doing this in September and not December, because you have some time. CrossFit gives themselves some time to put out the details that people really want to know. So to wrap this up, big picture from a coach perspective, you can kind of blend in some of your athlete goals. You've already touched on them a little bit and kind of where you're at. A message that we want to send to athletes that we already know, the diehards in our gym, the athletes, like they already know all the rules. They're writing them down, their training plans, they have all that. What about for the people that are saying, what's your advice, and be real about it, that when you see something like this and it lights a light bulb above your head, like, ooh, maybe I can do this, or ooh, it's going to motivate me for the next 3 months. How do you take information like this and say, all right, should this motivate me? Should this be my driver towards extra work or extra attention on my fitness and lifestyle and health and my nutrition? Should I pay for a new program? Should I get some accessory programming in? because this is a very popular time of year to get that going. We're back in the routine. Back to school nights are finally done. You can, find some you time. Should this be something that your average athlete, your average CrossFitter, which is almost everyone, should you be motivated by this, or should you just kind of do your thing and let whatever happens happen?
I think you should be motivated. I think there's no doubt. Um, a lot of people are going to be skeptical. I mean, they're going to be skeptical with what's happened with CrossFit sport over the past year. And let's face it, this past year, 2025, was the worst year. And I don't want to be a downer about it, but let's be
Yeah.
realistic here.
Yeah.
It was the worst year in terms of registration for the Open since 2014. I looked, and it was like 2024, we had 350,000 athletes, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
That was more than 2023, which was 323 athletes. 2025 was 233,000 athletes. So it was like a 100,000 athlete drop, and it's huge. It's huge. And compare that to High Rocks, which had like 550,000 athletes competing from the 2024 to 2025 season. So I think we've always talked about the fad, like fitness is a fad, right? We always talk about the ups and downs.
Yep.
I think we're on the up. Like this is going to, I think CrossFit, no matter what happens, like let's take the worst case scenario. CrossFit totally folds in the next year. Well, if you're an athlete, the best thing you could say is, well, I competed in the last Open that was available to us, which is sad but true. But and if CrossFit takes off because they find the right buyer and they make some good moves and everything else happens, then this is the resurgence of CrossFit. I feel like we're right at the precipice. We don't know where we're going. We nobody knows. I think everyone you ask. So why not lean into it? If you enjoy CrossFit, if you enjoy fitness, if you enjoy improvement, this is the easiest and best hat to hang your fitness goals on. Like you said, if you don't have a goal, you are dead in the water. Like you must have something. And I think Gagnon's seminar really lit that when I watched it. Like I don't have to learn how to do ring muscle ups, but the ring muscle up progression would really help me overall for a lot of things, and it would make me a better, healthier person. I don't have to do 30 ring muscle ups, but I could certainly work on those progressions to do that. And I don't have to be a semis athlete next year or even a quarters athlete, but the working towards that will make me a better athlete. And that's where everyone should take the CrossFit Open. The changes makes it a little more accessible. It makes it a little bit better, but no doubt the fact that you can look at this and use this as a process and a future goal to say, all right, let me work on this, this, and this, and this. Maybe I'm not going to make the games, but I will, at the end of the Open, be a fitter, healthier, stronger, more rounded overall human being. And I think that is the way everyone should be approaching the CrossFit Open.
Yeah, I love that. I love the Open's there for a lot of different reasons, but I think the most basic reason it's there is to help motivate you and give you some sort of gauge, right? And we have an aging gym. It gets over talked about in some ways, but it is truth that we are fighting this battle against biology, where at some point you are going to lose strength and capacity and muscle mass, all this. But that inevitableness aside, there is a path to you trying to hold on to what you have. Instead of always trying to get better and raise your percentile, it's, can you stay the same? I think the most respectable athletes I see over time are the ones that, like, they're just always there. They're always there. They used to be 28. They're 40 now, 3 kids, 2 jobs later. They're still where they were 12 years ago. And I think there's only a couple different gauges you can actually use to find that objective truth, rather than the subjective feeling of good job, bad job, you're struggling, you're doing great. And I've seen this go both ways, where people surprise themselves in the Open in a good way, saying like, wow, and we joke about it, like, still got it. Like, and they're happy about it. They can't walk for 3 days, but hey, they did 140 wall balls, right? And then I see go the other way, where people maybe get a little too overconfident in themselves. I believe in the Open for how well it can humble athletes. You get some athletes with really big egos, and they think this, they think they're here, and then the Open comes in and brings them back down to earth. And we don't want someone to feel bad for that. That wants like, hey, you still have work to do. If your goal's up here and the Open just told you that you're down there, you need to put more attention on trying to refine things. And coaches too. It should challenge us as coaches to help you reach your goals. So that's why I love the Open, because it just, in my opinion, it just always brings us back to the center. You have people that lose self-esteem. You have people that get too much self-esteem. It always brings us back to the center. It kind of brings us back together. And I think this, no matter what version of the Open it is, as long as it's not in October, we'll fully support it. And I really do firmly believe in it. The sports side, the quarterfinals, the semifinals, the games, all that stuff that is changing year to year. It's a good test for you to focus on controlling the controllable. And that's your effort, your desire, your mindset. And then whatever rules come in and out over the years, hey, sometimes you get to play, sometimes you don't, but you know that you did your process. So that's what I love about the Open. But I agree, Sam. I think this is going to be we knew last year it was going to go down. I didn't think it was going to go down that much. That number that you just said, 100,000. And there's a few reasons behind it. But I'm really curious to see, even more so than last year, what the numbers will be this year, because they have some positive momentum right now, but they're not back to where they were 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Let's say pre-COVID. It's not there yet. And I think that's their goal, is to get back there. And I'm really curious to see what happens in this year's Open.
I mean, for our gym, we have generally been all in on the Open every year, and that's been such a high point for us. Yeah. 23.2 was probably one of the most amazing experiences as a fitness person that I could have seen and participated with when we hosted it. That being said, I understand every affiliate's going to choose to do what they want to do, but I think if you're a true CrossFit affiliate, and I believe that we are in terms of how we train our athletes and what our goals are, it should and must be the high point of getting your athletes to participate, to get better, regardless if they're that hour a day person, 3 times a week, or if they're gunning for the games. Like you said, it brings us together, and that is so powerful. Like, I've seen that every year. I've participated every year, and I'm looking forward to it again for next year.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the kind of just the layout of what to expect. Obviously, you'll hear more about the Open, probably more close to like December, January from us. Not gonna beat that dead horse yet. We don't want to burn you guys out with it, but it's good to know ahead of time what is coming down your way. So, because I do think it can impact your training in the next few months if you are goal oriented. Now you have a system in front of you, an endpoint that you could strive for. And I really hope that some of you guys take the information that we just share with you and apply it to your training, apply it to your life, and we'll all be in this together. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.